Welcome to the show. Let's see. Looks like we are live. Looks like we are live. All right, we're going to give the family a minute to come on in. Let's see. All right. And as we do, do me a favor as you come in. Do me a favor and share this video. I'm doing the same thing. We have a good show lined up tonight. Do me a favor, family, as you come in, share this video. Let me know who you are, where you're listening from, and share this video. Hit that like button and share this video, please, and thank you. All right. Invite some friends. I think we got a pretty good show scheduled tonight. So y'all give me a second while I share it out. See if we can get a few people on in here. Because I think the brother Lynn Sturdivant has a very good message, and I want that message to reach far and wide. I think we got to talk about what spousification is. I had never even heard that term before. As my lovely wife always in the place under my own channel name. Thank you, login under. I think I'm gonna have to remove you as a admin or something before the show because you keep coming in under my name or under my banner. But anyway, welcome to the show. I'm gonna share it. Do me a favor, like I said, hit that like button, share this video, and we're gonna get started. I'm gonna give the family just a few more minutes to come on in as we get set up. Let's see. Welcome to another exciting episode of Living Proof with the Love Alchemist. And tonight we have an exciting guest, Brother Lynn Sturdivant. And we're going to talk about the burden of spousification. The burden of spousification. Before we do, got a little bit of an advertisement. This show is brought to you in part by the Heart Workbook, 31 Days to Mastering Your Relationship. It can be found on Amazon. And you can also get it at my website, www.theconditionsoflove.com. My computer's acting up for some reason today, so I can't show the image the way I normally do, but you can get it at www.theconditionsoflove.com. I do have a copy of the book. I'll show it to you right here. It's called 31 Days to Mastering Your Relationship. This is a book that my wife and I put together, and it satisfies all your relationship needs. Basically, relationship rejuvenation and enhancement in a binder. And secondly, my wife has been working pretty around the clock on this word search, man. This is a word search book for couples. See that? My wife and I put that together. I got to give credit where it's due, though. My wife did most of the work on that. Look how thick this book is, man. I think it's something like 18,000 different words in this book. So she did a real good job on this. Nice little couples fun, man. Just something to break the monotony. Buy one to do it together, or you can even buy two. My son-in-law and my daughter, they like to race. They're very competitive with stuff like that. So they would have two of those, and they, have little competitive matches to see who can find the words first. But anyway, without further ado, I'm gonna bring this brother on into the show. Let me get his bio ready, so I sound like I know what I'm talking about as I introduce this brother. Dr. Lynn Sturdivant. He is he's a psychologist, a life coach, and relationship expert. Got his psychology degree from NC Central University. And I'm not going to bore you. I don't know. You guys might not be as excited about reading this kind of stuff as I am. But suffice to say, this brother is well qualified. And so I'm going to bring him right on in without further ado. Welcome to the show, Mr. Lynn Sturdivant.
How you doing?
Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Man, I'm grateful to be here. I'm ready to share knowledge with the world about what's the newest updates and in the vernacular of love and family.
You sound educated, even just coming on it with the intro.
Ah,
Do me a favor, man, and for those who are unfamiliar with you, if you could just give us a brief intro of who you are, what you do, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
okay. Currently, at I'm a relationship coach, relationship coach pro. Uh, relationship coach dot pro is the website. I help couples who are distressed, who are going at each other and not realizing how their families impact their ability to be in a relationship. And so we kind of delve into how all of your childhood stuff kind of comes out in your relationship. There's no other place to discharge that energy. And so I help couples navigate the complexities of communication and how to get along and how to love themselves and each other. It's very rewarding work, and I do it out of love. So
I can dig it. That sounds a lot like why I do it, man. We do it for the love. It's good to have you on, man. I appreciate um, having the opportunity to build with minds like mine, man. Uh,
oh,
so
absolutely.
so you said something that I found pretty interesting. You just made a comment about how sometimes our childhood issues show up in relationship. Can you expound on that just briefly?
We are attracted to people who remind us of the parent that gave us the hardest time. And
Mm,
I noticed to be true personally because the women I dated for a while, my pattern was I cookie cutter of my mom. They were about the same height, skin tone, hair, attracted women with glasses. So it was interesting. I had to go back to school to understand that. So once I got an understanding of it, I became fascinated with how what you grow up with, you are attracted to. And here in the South, you hear it all the time. You ain't do nothing but marry your mama. You ain't do nothing but marry your daddy, just like your daddy, just like your mama. So
hmm
you hear this all the time, and I became very fascinated with that line of thought. So I kind of that's the study that I dove into, and what came out was absolutely fascinating. Still writing dissertation. Dissertation's finished. Me and Virginia Tech going back and forth. So we working on the doctor part. We just about there. So yeah, it's amazing. Men are attracted to women who have similar bone structures of their moms, and it's kind of fascinating when you start to look at the things that nobody pays attention to and how it impacts your ability to be in a relationship. It's quite fascinating.
Wow, that's heavy. I never thought about it like that. So I guess that would hinge on you having a healthy relationship with your mother then as a male. Because if there's a relationship where uh, maybe there's a lot of tension or a lot of strain or something happens between the mother and her son, for instance, that causes discord, ongoing discord. Let's just say flat out that the son hates his mother, then
Okay.
that would cause an opposite reaction. Maybe does that sound accurate, or am I thinking too hard on
Well, the thing is, it depends on how you grow up. 85% of Black children don't grow up with a father in the house.
it?
So if I've never seen a man love my mama, I don't have a prototype in my mind as to how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to look at TV, family, friends, and just kind of piece together what I think it should be. So that impacts, how I'm going to be in a relationship, because it'll be based on my perception and not something that I grew up with.
Okay, that makes sense. And that kind of rolls us right into what the topic of the show was. We talked about, you and I had a conversation offline. You introduced me to this term spousification. I didn't even know it was a word. I'm showing my ignorance a little bit, right? So if you don't mind, give us an understanding of, one, what spousification is, and two, why it's a burden.
Spousification, when you look at the family system, I study family systems. There's the parental system, there's a line, and then there's the sibling system. So in the parental system, if one of the members of the parental system leaves the system, whether it's mom or dad, what happens is this vacuum takes place, right? So dad leaves or mom leaves, and the children in the sibling system have noticed that one of the parents is gone. So usually the oldest child, usually the boy child, will step into that vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. It's got to plug it up with something. So one of the kids will step up into this vacuum and become a surrogate spouse to mom, because what mom needs, what does the system need? The system needs a dad. So if I'm the oldest male in the house, then I could get sucked into that role, unless my mom is healthy enough to keep me in the sibling system and handle the vacuum. You don't replace the vacuum with one of your children. You go outside of, you go outside and you get a boyfriend, or you get a male friend, or somebody to help you navigate, how you're going to raise your children. You don't turn to a kid. You don't make your kid your confidant. So if I'm spousified, then I'm tending to my mom's needs, and it's a burden and it's not fair. But see, what really needs to take place is mama needs a boyfriend, not turn to a son. But it's real convenient because you're there. So a lot of boys get spousified. No one talks about spousification when the girl child gets spousified, which is that's a whole nother show. So spousification is kind of this phenomenon that takes place when one of the parents leaves the system and the oldest kid kind of steps into this role, not willingly, but they get pulled into that role, and then they function as if they are the spouse.
Wow. Okay. So now you mentioned that roughly 80% of Black families don't have a father present in the home. But there are some scenarios where there are single fathers. And so in that scenario, and you touched on it briefly, is it the same dynamic? Is it a similar dynamic that takes place if there's a father raising the daughter? And
Oh yeah,
because that would seem less likely. Okay,
it
that would
seems
seem
less
less
likely,
likely.
right? But
Yeah,
that occurs. Yeah.
You hear women say things like, well, this is the little man, or he's the man of the house, things like that. But you wouldn't expect a man to say that this is the woman of the house to his daughter. So is it a similar dynamic? Explain that a little bit for me.
It's a similar dynamic, but there's different social pressures. Men are less likely to say this is the woman of the house, because we still fall under the rules of patriarchy. Patriarchy is struggling to hang on depending on what the situation or circumstance is. So if patriarchy is the dominant theme, then this is my little man of the house, because man needs family needs patriarch. So if patriarchy is the dominant theme of that family, then that's what takes place. But I have yet to hear a man who was raising daughters by himself refer to his daughter as the woman of the house. I have yet to hear that.
Right. So in these scenarios, because this doesn't sound like a healthy thing, but I know it's common for women to say, this is my little man, this is the man of the house. So in a sense, these children, boys, are given a title without the power, right? Because even though he's quote unquote the man of the house, he can't really move like a man. He still has a curfew. He still gets put on punishment, right? He's still being told what to do in a childlike capacity.
Right.
So
You get
does
the
this
title.
set does this set a
I'm sorry.
yeah. So is this kind of a does it sound like something that might mimic an abusive type? Is there some type of abusive dynamic taking place? What category? How would you classify that?
That's really hard. It's a power dynamic. So if I've been dubbed my little man, and I hear a lot of women introduce their son as their little man, you're giving your 3-year-old, 4-year-old boy this kind of power. See, this is what you introduce your son. This is my son. This is mom. So this is the way it needs to stay. But if I introduce him as my little man, and all the women in her circle say, "Oh, girl, he cute, and he gonna be a heartbreaker and all this stuff," and you dress him up and take him out, and you get all this attention. And what happens over time is this repetition. And so you're the man. You hear it. You're the man. You're the man. You're the little man. You're the little man. And so by the time I hit 12, 13, and puberty kicks in, and there hasn't been a man to get up in my chest to correct me, right? Here's where the father needs to be in play. If no one corrects me, then I am the man. Right around 12, 13, right when I start to turn, when puberty starts to happen, I become the man, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll hear women who will, come into my clinic and say, "Yeah, I don't know where he got that from. I don't know where he gets that from. I mean, I just don't understand it." And I said, "Well, and then we start to peel back some of the layers in which, you gave him the title at age 3. And you kept telling them that. And at some point, if you just inculcate, or learning through repetition is inculcation. So if I learn through repetition that I'm the man, then right around puberty, I'm going to be the man. If there isn't a man there to put me in my place, right around 12, 13, that boy is just as physically strong as his mother. When he hits 16 and 17, he can be 3 times as strong as his mother. And so now you can't really contain it. And so now it's kind of out there, and that it's a really weird dynamic in that it kind of robs the boy child of his childhood. If I have to tend to my mother, or if I am my mother's confidant, okay, that's going to impact how I relate to women later on. I guarantee you it will show up. And you hear this mama's boy stuff, and I've talked to several women about, she was dating a mama's boy. Every time his mama called, he's tending to her. He visits her 2-3 times a week. This is long after he's out of the house. He's gone. He knows he should be in a relationship with another woman, but his mother has conditioned him to take care of her.
Wow.
It's going to impact relations with women.
Yeah, definitely. I can see how it would. Aaron Miller said, "True, dating single mothers, a lot of them will act like their son is the actual man of the house and give certain level of respect to their son that you should only give to an actual grown man." Has that been your observation as well?
I have seen that dynamic play out as well. Correct. Right. And again, it's kind of lazy, because you don't turn to the most convenient male in your space. You need to be with someone who's age appropriate and generationally appropriate, in terms of a spouse. You don't want to spousify your son, because it's not age appropriate. He's going to give up a certain amount of his freedom, his life, intending to you. So it's never going to be okay, because it kind of handicaps him in being with other women.
You made a comment a minute ago about the child being the confidant, right? And so in these situations, I can imagine that a type of dynamic occurs where maybe if the parent hasn't yet moved on to another relationship after the split between, the child's father, if the mother hasn't moved on, or even in this case, in some cases, the father hasn't yet moved on. If there is a dynamic that occurs where the parent through the child that should be otherwise be sought through an adult, speak on the impact that might have, not only on the child while they are a child, but also what kind of impact might that have in that child's efforts to establish a healthy relationship as an adult.
Well, if I'm my mom's confidant, then I'm privy to some probably inappropriate things I should be listening to. So, she's telling me about guys she's dating, or she's telling me about, how 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 the date went, or some of the things that she's going through, depression, and what this boy child feels is a sense of obligation to take care of his mother, even though she is, depressed or sad or lonely, or something like, something that's impacting her life. He feels the need to take care of her, and it impacts him because if he tries to get with another woman, then his mind is going to be in two. You can't be spousified and date another woman, because you're not going to be fully available to this other woman that's outside of your house, to somebody that's age appropriate for you. You can't really be fully available. So if I'm not available, then at some point in time, as a boy child, I've got to break out of my mama's orbit. Mom, you got to take care of your own stuff. Mom, you need to do this. And then if you get, and I talk to a lot of Black males who get the guilt trip if they try to break out of that orbit. And it's like, well, you never come by anymore, or you never call anymore, or, you're not tending to me the way you used to. So
Wow.
That impacts his ability to be with another woman, and it's going to impact his, a lot of times that can turn into it can be offensive, like if he doesn't separate himself from his mom, and not and what I help a lot of guys to do is navigate the guilt of trying to separate from their moms and still be cool, but not have to tend to her. It's tough. I know some folks who are trying to break out of that orbit. It's tough.
Yeah. And you hear a lot of women referring to referring to grown men as mama's boys. And as you talk about this thing, you kind of make me wonder how much of grown men still being referred to as mama's boys. I wonder if these are scenarios where spousification has taken place, and that these adult men have not yet been able to disconnect from the mother. What do you think about that?
Well, if he brings a woman home and meet his mother, now, if and I've seen this a zillion times, he's trying to break out of that orbit. He's like, Mom, I'm dating another woman. I want you to meet her. All right, fine. He brings this woman home, and the mother instantly dislikes this girl because she represents all of the love and all of the attention that I've been getting. She is a direct threat to cut all that off. So it's almost like an instant. If she's not healthy, if she's healthy, she'll encourage the relationship. If she's not healthy, she'll discourage the relationship and even undermine the relationship. And so now he's torn between, tending to his mom and tending to, his girlfriend. It's a heck of a dichotomy, because you're trying to you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but this male will not defend his girl to his mama. See, here's where it gets really tricky, because it becomes very competitive between the mother and the girlfriend. It can be very competitive, even toxic. So if that's happening and he's in the middle, I don't want to hurt either one of them. Then that's going to cause some disharmony in his own relationship, and it's a pattern. It becomes a pattern. Well, he goes out and gets another woman and goes through the same cycle. And it isn't until he can actually break off from his mom, tell his mother no, establish a boundary, and then put himself first. And you're gonna need some sessions to learn all three of those skills.
Yeah. So what are some steps that you think that a man can take to begin creating these healthy boundaries between himself and his mother? How does he break from that mold of being spousified as a young man? What's some steps that you would advise a young man?
Yeah, you need to come talk to me, because you got family and friends. They see it, but they don't live with you, so they're not really going to tell you. They'll notice it, and they'll probably talk about you, but they won't come and say, "Yo, man, it's an unhealthy relationship you have with your mom. You really need to get up out of there. You need to move, or you need to." Not too many family and friends are going to tell you that about your own mom. So it isn't until you can kind of get out of your head and see somebody like me who can kind of put this thing in a perspective for you that you can understand what happened to you.
Mm-hmm. So Aaron Miller says that's why it's important for these modern women to know how to cook or take care of their man, in a sense. I'm not quite sure how that plays into the spousification. Expound on that a little bit, Aaron. What do you think? Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, I saw it. It doesn't matter how functional his girlfriend is. If he can't leave the gravitational pull of his mom, she could have she could be making tons of money, great mom, great cook, great all of that. But if he can't break the gravitational pull of his mom, he has to become his own man and just kind of, sever the ties. I mean, it's a hard thing to do, because if you've been tending to your mom for the last 18 years of your life, even when they go to school, a lot of these guys, they send their refund checks home. And I had a case in which this boy was sending, he had other younger brothers and sisters. They were at home, and he's getting $5,000 to $6,000 refunds. He's sending his refund check home. I'm like, wait a minute, is your mom going to help you pay that back? Oh, you don't understand the situation. No, I understand the situation. What was she doing before you went to school? See, and here's where you start to come, your eyes start to open up, because this guy had a 1.999. He was about to flunk. I said, boy, you flunk out, and now that loan's gonna come due, and you ain't gonna have a job with a degree to be able to pay it back. And that's when that's when it starts to register. It's like, I was like, so what should I do? I'm like, well, you need to take control of your account. He had his mama on his account. She had access. So I mean, he's sending home you, and let me be clear, this just doesn't happen to the boy child. This happens to the girls too. The girls send refunds home to mama as well, who feel a sense of obligation taking care of their mom. But again, that's a whole nother ball of wax that we can kind of get into. But both children, all the children in the sibling system feel a sense of obligation to take care of the parent. The children usually become whatever the parents needed. So one of the kids could be highly religious. One of the kids will be a superstar. One of the kids will be rebellious. One of the kids will be a scapegoat. One of the kids will be a helper child. So all of these children take on a role to kind of keep this mom and this dad together.
There's a comment here by Clifton O'Neill. He said, not just mama's boy, but grandmama's boy too. So this spousification can actually skip a generation. Have you seen that?
Absolutely. Well, Nancy Boyd Franklin said a black woman isn't a mother until she's a grandmother.
Mm,
That's a heavy statement. So
that is
I took that into consideration. Then and I hear a lot of my friends and a lot of my clients say, yeah, I was raised by my grandma. I was raised by my grandfather. So I mean, I totally understand that. And again, when you look into the family dynamics, something happened between that mother and the grandma that forced the grandma to step in and take a role. So grandma takes the kids while mom is trying to figure things out. See, 85% of black women grow up with their mom. So it's a really big contrast. So, I see all these women who are flourishing. When you look at what I call vertical intimacy between black women who don't know each other. Your hair looks good. That dress looks good. Girl, where you get them shoes from? Girl, where you get that dress from? Where'd you get your hair done? Women, black women can talk to each other just like that. Not know each other. Black men, on the other hand, we don't get that vertical intimacy. When we pass each other in the street, we just keep on going. We may notice you got a nice haircut or where'd you get those glasses from, but we ain't gonna say that. We're not trained that way. So all this vertical intimacy, you see, it's quite a phenomenon now. You got Black Girl Magic, and you got all these black women groups that are just have proliferated in the past, even the last 18 months, and it's all about girl, 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 girl. It's all about the women taking care of each other, lifting each other up, and sis, I got you, and all this stuff. And my question is, I am, as a black male, half of who you are. You're going to deny this half of you and lift this other half of you up. How's that going to impact you in a relationship? So that's another show.
Right. So as you were talking, hold on, Aaron Miller has something. He said, damn, bro, where'd you live? Guys are usually cool with each other. So I guess he's talking in reference to that vertical intimacy. So Aaron, I guess
it's tricky. Two black males that don't know each other, any prolonged stare more than 4.5 seconds can go confrontational. Hell you looking at? Just like that. No, bro, I just thought I knew you. You look like a friend of mine. Oh, no, I ain't, again, if I didn't grow up with my father, I don't have that vertical intimacy. So, I'm just talking about males in general, just, even the ones who don't go to school, more than 4.5 seconds.
Yeah.
That could flip really easy.
Yeah. And if you're not careful with the compliments, then, there's a stigma, a social stigma associated with how you might compliment another male. You might be seen a certain way,
Right.
So or whatever.
Vertical intimacy has been conflated with homosexuality.
Mm-hmm. So
you giving me a compliment, man. What you looking at my shoes for? What you looking at my pants for? What you looking at my,
Yeah. So you from the islands, dudes don't get down.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different culture. That's a different culture, different mindset. No, we talk about American black males who are here.
Yeah, you made a comment that raised this question in my mind. You talked about vertical intimacy. Is there a such thing as same-sex spousification? So the mother, let's say the mother doesn't have any sons; she only has daughters. Is there a spousification that takes place? Go ahead, expound on that a little. How does that look? How does that play?
It can. It can, and it's the same setup. Here's a family. The male leaves the family. The oldest child, in this case, the oldest child is the girl child, and the girl child tends to her mother, just as if the male would. But that relationship is hard, because this girl child is sacrificing a portion of her life in dedication to her mama and raising her siblings. There's spousification where she's tending to mom. Then there's parentification where she's tending to the younger siblings. She got to take them to school. She got to pick them up from the bus stop. She got to fix their food in the morning. She got to iron their clothes. She got to get them ready. That takes the child out of a child's role and kind of parentifies the child.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So that's more like a parentification then, huh?
Right. That's right. There's parentification, there's adultification, and then there's spousification.
Okay, so what is adultification? Explain that.
As an only child growing up, I got exposed to conversations that ordinary children don't have. So I got adultified because I'm privy to conversations that, they just no one told me to get out of the environment. I was the only kid there. A lot of only children get adultified really early on. They know more than the average kid knows if I'm adultified.
Mm-hmm. So these types of situations where, and let's go back to the idea of 80+%, or I don't know what the number is. It fluctuates whether it's 78% or 85% of fathers not being there. This creates a culture of daddy issues, right? So not only do the girls have daddy issues, but it sounds like the boys could have daddy issues too. Can you expound a little bit on how daddy issues manifest in masculine behavior?
Sure.
With our boys.
The most important parent in the life of the child is the same-sex parent. That's who I'm going to model. That's who I'm going to imprint. That's who I'm going to copy. When I was 4 years old, my grandfather was in the mirror shaving. He gave me a razor and gave me some foam. I'm looking at him and I'm shaving. I'm copying his behavior, his mannerisms. I'm rushing to hold the door open for my grandma. The door's bigger than me, but I know to pull the door open for my grandma. That's somebody I'm going to copy. I'm going to imprint after. So that becomes a part of who I am. That's what I'm going to internalize. But if there's no male in my environment, in my immediate environment, then I'm going to copy some of the things that I see my mom do. So that's a whole nother show. We're getting on some really thin ice, bro. But that's a conversation that I can have with very few people.
We can have it. I mean, this is what it's for, man. I mean, this is I don't mind stepping on a little bit of thin ice. We're not going to say anything too offensive, I don't imagine. But even if we do, I mean, this platform is for growth. It's not just education, but it's also for entertainment. I mean, entertainment as well as education. So let's do that. Let's step on some of this thin ice, man. Let's talk about it.
I look at it in prior to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Civil Rights Act of 1964. Black households were two-parented, 73%. Half of that 73% had some side hustle or business. We were in a community, we dealt with each other. There was no outside impact or influence on how we did things. The rise of when you look at, I think, the rise of homosexuality took place after the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So now, if a black man wanted his family to eat, he could not be in the house. If he couldn't find a job, if he were in the house, then the benefits, welfare, child support, AFDC, WIC, food stamps, Section 8, Medicare, Medicaid, all of that stuff. If you're mad, they had these things called welfare raids where they would come into your house at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to see, they're looking for a belt or a pair of shoes or a man's shirt. And if they found it, then your benefits got cut off. So if this man wanted his family to eat, then he could not be present in the house. That started, and I get rocks thrown at me for talking about, the Civil Rights Act. Talk about it was the greatest thing to happen to Black people. No, it's probably the worst thing to happen to Black people because we lost our sense of autonomy. And now, the only time a woman, if you're getting all these benefits, if a woman's getting all these benefits, the only time she needed a man was for fertilization. Other than that, there was really not much use for him. So what is he to do? If he couldn't find a job and the only thing he could do was make babies, then what happens? That has spilled over into today. It's a much. It's really insidious how it's happening now, because now, and 85% of Black boys ain't growing up with a daddy in the house. So I don't know what it looks like for a man to love my mama. Never seen it. For a girl child, she needs to see a man love her mama so she can know what to expect.
Right.
So the impact is devastating. You've got whole think tanks of people. The Moynihan report was kind of that think tank strategy on how to handle Black people, how to categorize them, how to manipulate them, and how to keep your populations under control. It's a whole movement behind that. Still, I think it's still going on.
Wow. So, man, that's heavy. So you say you think it's still going on. So it sounds like, in a sense, that with the offering of welfare housing and all these different benefits, that would seem to rob a woman of the urgency to cooperate with the man for things that she might otherwise have to lean on him for, or work with him in acquiring those things. So the government basically is, in many of these situations, I guess the government functions as daddy, huh? Or
that is correct. That is correct. That is correct.
Wow.
When my father left when I was 3 or 4 years old, I remember standing in line getting the big block of welfare cheese. I remember that. I clearly remember there was a line for it.
Me too.
I clearly remember. I remember food stamps. I remember they used to write the receipt, the change from the food stamp on the back of the food stamp. So, this was, my father was no longer in the picture. So now mom had to make do with what she could do. And I get that. I appreciate it. I ain't want to be out in the street. So I appreciate that. But it impacted her ability to be with a man. And I'm an only child. So I was it. So I was it for a minute till my mom passed when I was 12.
Yeah.
But we were going down that road of, I was getting older. I was beginning to understand things more. And I think I think my mom died of a broken heart, actually. So.
Wow. Condolences. I know it's no late, but condolences on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you think some of these things are still going on today. Do you have any examples of how you think those things are showing up, or how those things might be playing out today?
Sure.
As far as those strategies, those think tank strategies or whatever.
The last stat that I remember was that Black teenagers watch 80 hours per month of television programming. The average Asian teenager watches 10. So to give you that contrast. So if I want to inculcate you, or learning through repetition, I'll show you these images that you will consume these images. And I ain't gonna, I don't have to go down the road of the rap videos. If you inculcate that language, that vernacular about women and what they can and can't do for you, and you get all of this stuff, and there's nobody around to kind of guide you. If you're listening to this on your own, you got your own, these kids got computers now at age 4 and 5. So
yeah,
it has impacted the family. It's been devastating. It's incredible how it's working. So you got people who now you got TV shows that will specifically. I'm looking at this TV show, Marry Me Now, in which the women are proposing to the guys, And so it kind of undermines patriarchy a little bit. And I'm like, on one hand, it's great, but on the other hand, it's kind of, one of the couple of guys who, got surprised with, marry me now. They said, nah, I ain't doing this now. This is between us, and I'm going to do this in our time. So that show kind of undermines Black masculinity. So, and again, I've been in some fierce debates about that. I'm like, see, and as a 9, 10-year-old, 14-year-old child looking at that, it's like, wow, that it's going to undermine Black masculinity and Black patriarchy, which is beginning to, fall apart, I think, into something. It's morphing into something else now. I can't really put my hand on it. I don't know what it is now.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are some who say, I mean, you mentioned how it's basically in all of our entertainment. The programming is in our entertainment, TV, radio, movie theaters, etc. Right? There are some who might push back and say, well, that's optional. We don't have to engage in those things. So if, and that's true, right? There is a choice that can be made, but such an overwhelming majority of the choices seem to be leaning toward indulging in those various avenues of entertainment. What can you speak to why so many would make the less constructive choice rather than saying, hey, I don't want no part of that quote unquote entertainment? What is it that's so captivating, so entertaining about these different things that are being offered to us that more people don't just simply opt out and take a more constructive path?
Right. It's the beat. I got if you saw my Spotify, I got all of that. So I get every gangster rap lyric. I mean, I got it all. I ain't gonna be a hypocrite about it. I know how to listen to it though. I'm not. It doesn't consume me. I have a separate identity from that. I'm not. I have a sense of accomplishment through school and books, and I already have a sense of accomplishment. So for folks who don't have that sense of accomplishment, so you're listening to the lyrics and the beat, and if you listen to enough of it, you get these. You have fatherless boys who run around with other fatherless boys trying to define what it is for their manhood. What's going to be the definition of my manhood? So if I don't have a man in my life to kind of guide me, and I'm running around with other fatherless boys who have the exact same problem as me, it's not going to be good in terms of outcomes and trajectories. The outcome isn't going to be as such, conducive to going to school and going, not usually, but it depends. If there's a male to intervene into the life of that child, to kind of be a guy, uncle, a brother, a close friend, to give that boy child that guidance, hey, don't listen to that. Hey, focus on these things right here, focus on, getting a good job, getting a good education, and hopefully later on you'll meet a good woman. If you don't have somebody to keep you in the guide rails, then how are you going to acquire that? It's tricky. Now there have been some males who have pulled themselves through. Yeah, I'm one of them. So I didn't have, my grandfather was in the later half of my life, but it impacted. I never wanted to disappoint my father, my grandfather, and so I knew I had to good grades. I knew I had to, all the fun activities on campus. I knew I had to be disciplined about it, and I got through school. I got my honor corps. I said, Grandpa, I did it. And he was proud of me, and we had that bond. So I had a male to nurture me. So when I talk about vertical intimacy, I'm really talking about nurture. How are you nurtured? So I'm like, if you don't get that nurture, if you don't get that vertical intimacy from another male, that agape love, right? That someone who genuinely cares for me, It's important for
Mhm.
my development. It's important for what I internalize about myself. It would be based on
Yeah.
the men in my
Yeah.
life. Sure.
You know, you remind me of this story. I like to tell a story about elephants and men. For those of you who haven't heard it, there's a story about the elephants in Kruger National Park in South Africa, and the park rangers had determined that there was an overpopulating problem, an overcrowding problem of elephants in the park. So, you familiar with this story? So, uh, so they wanted to alleviate the overcrowding, and so they devised a plan, and they came up with this airlift strategy to use a helicopter and these slings, and they were going to airlift elephants from Kruger National Park in South Africa to another park not too far away. And so the challenge, though, was that the slings couldn't accommodate the bull males, the adult male elephants. They weren't big enough, they weren't strong enough to accommodate lifting out the adult male elephants. So all they could take were the females, and then the adolescent males and the adolescent females. So they moved several elephants to a different park. And so when they get to this park, there's other wildlife there that elephants typically coexist peaceably with, rhinoceros and so on. And so after a little while, with these elephants being on this new location, they started noticing that much of the wildlife was coming up dead, gored to death, stomped to death. There would be rhinoceroses that were trampled to death. And they couldn't figure out what was causing this problem. They're like, wow, elephants, because elephants don't typically behave violently like that, where they attack other animals. And so they couldn't figure out what was causing the problem. So they decided to put some cameras up. And when they put these cameras up, they noticed that it was the young male elephants, the young adolescent males who were running roughshod. They were harassing the females, the adult females, the adolescent females, and they had formed gangs. They had literally formed gangs of young male elephants, and they were terrorizing all of the wildlife in the new park. That sounds very familiar, right?
It
It
sounds
sounds eerily
incredibly
similar
familiar.
to what
Oh, it's very
I
similar.
can in the city. Now watch
Wow.
this. What they did was initially they wanted to start killing off some of the elephants, but one of the scientists had a different idea. He said, why don't we revisit the idea of trying to airlift some of the bull males, the adult male elephants, to the new location, and let's see if that helps. And they began to bring some adult male elephants to the new location, and almost instantly the violence, the harassment, the gangs of elephants, of the young adolescent males, it stopped almost overnight. And what happens is they call they call it musk, where young adolescent males, they come into puberty and their testosterone levels are off the charts. They call it musk. And this is kind of what happens with us when we get to that age where we're 15, 16, and we're stronger than mom now. And if there's no adult male there to keep us in check, we kind of sometimes we get a little wild. And so what happens is when the presence of adult males is there, it keeps those testosterone levels in check. It keeps the mentality of the young males in check. And I think that's something very similar to what we experience in our community. What do you think about that?
We ain't no different than them animals. We have the luxury of language. We're no different. It's to say. I mean, I'm listening to the parallels. I'm like, wow, that is it's verbatim. It's verbatim, literally. So yeah, it's eerily similar. But that's, I mean, yeah, we're no different than the
it
animals.
almost makes me think about when you talked about the think tanks and the strategies and the dynamic that we're experiencing with this 80 plus or minus whatever percent of fatherlessness or absent fathers. It almost looks intentional.
It is intentional. Very intentional.
Yeah.
Well, they have to be. They have to be. If you're a heterosexual black male in the United States of America, you have a target on your back. You represent genetic annihilation. So, if I don't control you in some way, shape, form, or fashion, then you're going to, you know, you may come after our women, and you may you know, start the process of genetic annihilation, and that's a very real thing. So this emphasis, where you see this overemphasis, like all the when I look at the newscasts, CNN and CNBC, you know, the black males who are on those shows, they're gay. Most of the news anchors are gay, black men. So they are perceived as not as harmless, and it's like, okay. And so I have yet to. It may be one or two, but I'm not familiar with any news anchors who are or mainstream news anchors who are heterosexual, black, and male. I haven't seen it. They could exist, but I haven't seen it. It's, you know, I haven't seen it.
So when you say non-threatening, when you say these males are non-threatening, you mean sexually?
Correct. That's the assumption, but the data is a little tricky there, because this phenomenon that I'm noticing right now, even in my client pool, is that lesbian women are starting to turn to homosexual males for children, and I see it in. It's like this new nuclear family that's coming up that it's not getting a lot of press because a lot of folks who don't know about it, but that phenomenon is starting to take place. It's like, wow, who would have known?
Women are turning to homo. You said lesbian women are turning to homosexual men?
Yeah, for children. Yes.
Wow, I hadn't heard that. That's interesting.
That's not mainstream. That's not mainstream media, but folks who, if you're a coach or a therapist or a counselor, if you've been doing this for a minute, you know that is becoming a reality. It's almost like the new, it's like the new family that is reforming, and they have these wonderful cooperative agreements about how they're going to raise the children, how the man's going to be in the lives of the children, and it's amazing. I can't even explain it. So I'm still discovering the phenomenon.
Yeah, man, you learn something new every day. I had not. I mean, it doesn't surprise me really as I think about it, but I hadn't heard it before. I got to say that. Fuzz Light says she saw it as a therapist, and that you are definitely telling the truth. Man, this show has been enlightening for me. I appreciate you coming on, man. You've definitely shared some gems that I can add to my own repertoire, man. I appreciate you.
Sure thing. My pleasure.
You did mention one thing. You mentioned one thing. I'm gonna circle back to this whole music idea and the 808 drum. And there's I forget his name. I think it was a guy out of Duke University, maybe, and he talked about the hypnotic rhythm of the 808 drum and how it I think it kind of relaxes the subconscious mind and prepares it, I guess, for the programming that the words have. So the 808 drum, I guess the timing of it relaxes us enough to make us more susceptible to the message in the music. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, it's vibration and frequency. So when I'm looking at, I look at a lot of, I'm going to visit Ghana, and I see the activities that are going on in the air, and the guys that are on the drums and the congos, it's melodic. I mean, I listen because it is so intense, and that I can feel that vibration as it penetrates. Every beat penetrates my body. And you know, well, if you just want to get down with it, we got chakras that respond to different frequencies throughout our bodies. And so it's not, you can put just about any kind of message. If you got a beat behind it, and if you haven't separated yourself from from the programming. I can listen to it for entertainment. You know, I'm working out. I like that beat. You know, I'm listening to, you know, or I'm cruising and I got my windows down and I got my music up loud. I'm trying to, you know, discharge from the day, and I kind of take a drive and just get the air, and I'm listening to the beats. It's something about the vibration of those drums and that bass that permeates my body that just, you know, makes me in tune with myself and my surroundings.
And you know it's true, because this is the reason we put on, nice slow music when it's time to spend some time with our significant other. The music to get you in the mood, right? And even, you know, back when I was a young knucklehead, we would put on a certain type of music when we were ready to turn up, when we were ready to get a little wild, you know. So music definitely can be felt, you know, and it does have an impact on your behavior. And I think a lot of people overlook that and they dismiss it as entertainment. But there's definitely a little bit more to it than that. I remember even listening to, I never noticed this myself. I tried it, but I don't think I ever quite got it. But they talked about backward masking in music. You remember that? And they said that if you played some of the music, if you took the record and turned it backwards, there would be messages in the music. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard that. I'm familiar with that. Yeah, I hadn't ran across a study, but I do remember people talking about. You know, I think there were several songs that were backwards masked there that were giving you messages that you couldn't hear consciously, but it kind of went through that and went straight to your unconscious. There's this phenomenon. I'll tell you something that's similar in the drive-in movies. It was called a tahistoscope, and that tahistoscope. So you got 33 millimeter film. One frame in those 33 frames said, "Drink Coke, eat popcorn." So when they went into intermission, the lines were flooded with, you know, getting popcorn and Coke. And the tahistoscope was banned. They made it illegal. You can't have that now. But someone had the wherewithal to go, I can increase my sales if I take just one. And you can't see that frame that fast. You just simply can't see it. 33 frames a second. So you can't see that one frame, but it registers in your unconscious that, you know, and when intermission comes on, it's like, I think I'm thirsty. Yeah, give me some jujubes and some twisters and some licorice and some, you know, I'm going to load up and I'm coming back to the car with all this stuff.
Yeah.
Eyes bigger than your belly. So, yeah, I'm a victim of that. When back in the day when they had drive-in, they even have drive-in movies now. I don't even think so.
I think they still do, man. I think they still do have a few of them. Yeah. I grew up going to the drive-in too on Cicero Avenue in Chicago, man. I don't shout out to the Clare Court, shout out to Chicago for those of you who are familiar. But yeah, I remember that study. I think they got sued for that too.
Oh yeah,
they would flash, you know, those different messages: popcorn, candy, soda, whatever. And like you said, by the time the intermission came, people would be unexplainably hungry or more thirsty.
You gotta go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't realize how you know, and they even, man, they flash little messages in the clouds. You know, it might say sex, or the castle might be shaped like the head of a penis, you know, and different things like that they inject. Some of these characters have erection that you wouldn't, you know, if you're not paying attention. Most children don't quite catch that, and even adults, when we're watching it, unless you're really paying attention and you're looking for these things, they go right past you. There was one where I think it was something with mice, where they were going, I think the rescuers down under, and they were going down this hill in a cart, like on a runaway cart type of thing. And they were showing all these pictures as the cart was going down fast. The pictures were flying by real fast, but somebody was wise enough to slow it down. And they showed a woman flashing her breasts in the child's cartoon. So to your point earlier, about how many about how many about how these messages can actually be in our music and in our entertainment. We don't understand the impact that these things can have on our behavior. For as like says, my cousin, the Smith family grew up in the of course with Kenny Pope. Yep, I know Kenny Pope. Yep. I mean, I haven't seen Kenny in years. I think he might even be my Facebook friend, but I haven't seen him since I was like 11 or 12 years old. And I didn't know, bro. I know I've heard. Man, we can talk about this all night, but I'm gonna appreciate and respect the time that you've shared with us. Fuzz Lights asked for your info. She wants to get in touch with you. So do us a favor and share with the family where you can be reached, how they can follow you, how they can get in contact with you.
Sure. My website is relationshipcoach.pro. And there's an inquiry box and say, hey, I saw the show. Here's my numbers on the website as well as my email, and you can get in contact with me there. Relationshipcoach.pro.
There we go. Relationshipcoach.pro. There it is. Dr. Sturdivant, I sure appreciate you, brother. You have definitely graced the show with some wisdom and some gems that we can take with us, man. Look forward to having you on again one day soon, because I think we can definitely build more on what on some of the foundation we laid here today. So, any final words, any parting words that you'd like to share? Final thoughts.
Well, you know, if you're going, what I encourage folks to do is to kind of get out of your head about, get a third party opinion about what you're thinking. So life transitions, relationship issues, talk to somebody who can give you some guidance in how to be in a relationship, how to, deal with toxic family members. That's a whole nother show. The secrets in the family. See, people think there's secrets in the family. There are no secrets in the family. There's only a conspiracy of silence. And that silence, if it isn't talked out, it will be acted out, and the children will act out that secret. So talk to me about, all the intergenerational dysfunction that's rolling down the hill. Somebody got to fall on the sword. If you don't want to pass it on to your children, then talk to me, holler at me, get to the bottom of it, put you on a correct course.
Yeah, definitely. There's this, I used to say all the time, you may not be responsible for those years and years of generational dysfunction in your family, but you can make sure that it stops with you. And to your point, somebody's got to fall on the sword, so why not you? Right. So Fuzz Light says, Doc, you're talking some great info. Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you again, man, once again. And
we'll do it again, for sure.
Yeah, definitely, man. I bid you adieu, man. You have a good rest of your evening, man. I appreciate you.
Okay. Sure thing. My pleasure.
That was fun. That brother shared a lot of great info. Thank you, family. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. And for that, we are eternally thankful. Appreciate you sharing a bit of your time with us. And with that, wish you well, family. Peace.